You're listening to Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY and Political Voices Network. Outside the Box is brought to you by Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. Happy draft day, everybody. To everybody toughing it out and joining Outside the Box today instead of listening to sports coverage, you're the real ones. You're the real ones today, and I appreciate that. Um, glad you're here. Hopefully, you've got plans. I've been getting videos sent to me by friends of mine of exactly what the traffic looks like in Pittsburgh, which I've been warning for the last year, relative to how Green Bay did last year, that was going to be the major sticking point. We're very wide open out here. Pittsburgh's all bridges and tunnels, and there's gonna be a lot of choke points. So there's one very angry individual dropping a bunch of f bombs because it's 6:50 something in the morning on Wednesday, and it's a standstill traffic everywhere he goes. And it's a hilarious video. And I have a feeling if you are on social media, you're going to be seeing those kind of videos for the foreseeable future. We are not here to talk sports, though. I couldn't even begin to speculate who the Steelers will pick, and I know Green Bay doesn't even have one. We're here to talk news. And shout out to everyone listening here, YouTube and TikTok, as well as Facebook. And I see Jim, you saying you got to join late because you have to work. Talk to your boss. Tell him you got obligations and you got to start your day a little bit at different times here. It's the best suggestion I can give you. They'll be fine. The company will persist. They always do. We have a lot to jump into here. I want to tie a bow on a conversation from yesterday surrounding gerrymandering. I want to have a real conversation about whether or not we are officially in a forever war yet, as well as a number of other topics as well. But I actually want to start with a business decision made by the Trump administration yesterday. And this will not be the first time we've had this conversation, but it will be the first time there's a new addition to the talk. About 3 months ago, we were operating off of a Bulwark article, and it highlighted about a dozen or so different examples of socialist ideas coming from Donald Trump, buying stake in different companies for the government, essentially buoying these companies that were struggling otherwise, but also those corporations would then be owned partially, if not majority, and we'll be getting into this one, which is a very large majority potentially, by the U.S. government going forward. And I'm going to start this off by saying this right here. I do not hate this idea coming from Donald Trump. I go very hard on Donald Trump every single day, and he absolutely deserves it. We're going to be talking about some fake AI protesters that he claimed to rescue later on in the program. There's plenty of reasons to highlight the shortcomings of the Trump administration, and I think that's worth talking about. Here's the thing. Spirit Airlines was struggling, and just full cards on the table. I've been advocating for this for a while in my personal life. I think that the airline industry should be nationalized. Given what we've been learning about price coordination, and we talked about it earlier in the week with JetBlue essentially using surveillance pricing to jack up $230 or $230 overnight because one individual essentially was known to be attending a funeral. So the airline took advantage of that. Price gouging in general. We played CEOs of Delta 2 weeks ago bragging that their profits are higher than ever through the first quarter. They've risen their prices as a result of oil prices. And they said even if oil prices went down, they have no intention of actually bringing their prices back down with that reduction in oil costs. So they're already raking in record profits, and it's only going to continue going forward from there. Plus surveillance pricing, plus the lack of options, the list goes on and on. So I could see a way towards working to a point where that industry is no longer for profit. And while I'm at it, I'd be fine doing that with the energy industry as well. Here's the thing. Upon saying that, a number of you listening are like, this guy's a freaking socialist. This guy, blah, 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 blah. I think there are certain industries that should not be run for profit. You are dependent on energy. You are dependent on travel. You are dependent on certain things, and those certain things should not be for profit. I would be fine with a nationalization of our agriculture industry. We basically already have that with the size of the bailouts that go to the ag industry every single year. In favor of that as well. Not the bailouts going to the major agriculture operations, but to the mom and pop farms. Absolutely. It's the most important job in America. You should be able to afford the basics of life for doing a job the rest of us need in order to have access to food. Like, that shouldn't be a bold declarative statement. Donald Trump announced a $500 million, it's really not even that much, a $500 million bailout for Spirit Airlines. And in return, the U.S. government would receive up to 90% of the company. The U.S. government would own that going forward. Now, there's a lot of people making fun of Spirit for being a Bush League airline. And allow me to say with my full throat right now, I've flown Spirit plenty of times. And yeah, there is a cheapness factor of it. But when you're 26 and you need to fly somewhere, Spirit's awesome. And so there is a certain element of why Spirit exists that I think we should be trying to defend in this nation, and making sure that air travel is convenient and cheap for everybody. Not necessarily comfortable. The seats feel like they're made of cardboard sometimes. I can acknowledge that. But it doesn't change the fact that affordable flight should be a goal in this nation. Here's what I want to highlight about this, though, and I'm thinking about this politically now. There has been some outcry, not a lot, but some in conservative media about this move. But by and large, this move has been championed. Why? Because MAGA's Orange Dad president said that it was a good idea. And so, of course, it's a good idea. That's fine. I think it's a good idea too. I'd be saying it regardless of who were in office. Here's the thing. I watched Kamala Harris, the woman running on Reagan-era tax cuts, increasing military strength, cracking down on the border, and isn't Liz Cheney cool? I watched Kamala Harris get designated as Communist Kamala because she had the audacity to say that she was going to pass a bill to prevent price gouging at grocery stores, specifically during emergencies. The most liberal sentence you can possibly imagine. Not going to crack down on corporate greed in general. I'm going to crack down on corporate greed in this specific industry at this specific time, and at no other time will I do that. And the entire Republican Party stood up and said, that's socialism. And I am here to tell you right now, to a certain extent, yeah, it is. But clearly, the action doesn't bother you. It's, is the man orange or not? And if the answer is yes, then it's okay. Because what Donald Trump is doing is textbook socialism, using the American government to take over a company and then subsequently benefit from that partnership. I am in favor of this. This is a good move. But going forward, I don't want to hear any cries about socialism anytime someone tries to crack down on corporate greed. I don't want to hear any cries about socialism when you hear a plan about freezing the rent. I don't want to hear any cries about socialism at any point, because clearly it doesn't matter. What matters is the messenger. This is textbook, and it's going through with barely even a blip on the freaking radar. And to Matt in my YouTube chat, he says, Ben's mad as hell even when he agrees. I'm angry today. I'm going to be honest with you, and we'll be getting into more reasons why later on. It deals more in the forever war standpoint, because that's yet another time when the Orange Dad president tells you when you're allowed to be mad and when you're not. And I am frustrated by the outcome here, because there's a level of stupidity in this White House, and I do not suffer fools. Like, it's not in my, I'm down to provide social engineering, social programs to bail people out that maybe aren't the best with their money. If you're willfully ignorant and stupid and loud about it, yeah, I got an issue with you, and I am angry right now. That's why I'm starting with something that I agree with. But I'm here to say, as I often flaunt, I got a good memory and unlimited RAM. I'm going to remember that nobody cares about this decision right now. This is a bailout, and I hate bailouts. But if the bailout ends up paying back tenfold into the government and provides cheaper flight access going forward, this is a net positive. MAGA will champion this as Donald Trump doing something good for the airline industry. And I would argue, yes, I think he should take it further than he already is. But if you agree with that statement, then you're going to agree with it in perpetuity. And if you don't agree with that statement, that's fine. There's no right or wrong answers here. But remaining consistent is what is key right now. I was watching one of the Republicans that's on MSNBC being like, I can't believe that the party of Reagan is engaging in this kind of action. You know, MSNBC, the leftist network, condemning this action here. I'm here to tell you right now, I think this might be one of the better moves of Trump's presidency. But this is textbook communism or socialism. So, Nostrovia, Comrade Trump. Welcome to the team. I hope everybody embraces what the reality of the situation is going forward and understands what it means to stay consistent in your beliefs. And with that, we're going to put a pin in that conversation. I welcome any comments about it here. 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. Do you think what the Trump administration is doing right here is going to have a net positive outcome, whether it be on the government or on an airline industry that has clearly been struggling lately? Not financially, they're raking in record profits, but for the average American to be able to take part in the flights that they are offering. Larry says the red and blue team are both right wing. Blue team is pushing the right team over the edge. You mean over the edge to the right? I'm struggling to visualize what you're describing there, but I feel you. And he also says the right and left wings are not wings. It's a circle. That's how the right can end up on the left. I hear a lot of people say that. They call it the horseshoe theory. I find that to be a trivialization of the conversation, but people will oftentimes try and convince you that like left-wing Bernie bros and MAGA people are similar. And for the record, when there's a Democrat in office, there is quite a bit of overlap. The OG listeners remember back when Biden was in office, and I said, I think I have more in common with MAGA than with blue MAGA, because at least when Biden was in office, MAGA understood that there was a trash economy under Bidenomics. But I am now realizing, now that Trump's in office, that MAGA is infinitely more obnoxious than blue MAGA, because MAGA's much louder when they're mad and then much louder when things don't change and they pretend that things are getting better. But I do understand that attitude is out there. Jerry, yeah, I'm getting to the 8 women being saved from the Iranian noose. That story's coming up later. I absolutely promise you. But to your point, Jerry, I am going to get into the conversation about Iran next. Is it official that we are in a forever war? The main crux of MAGA, no more forever wars. We no longer even have a 2 more weeks deadline. Donald Trump will not even commit to any kind of potential ending in the near future. Not that most of you listening ever bought it. But now we officially are at the point where it has been announced that there is no off ramp. And even once we get on the off ramp, we're looking at a half a year before anything would be able to return to normalcy. Have we officially entered the era of the forever war, or is this yet another negotiating tactic? We're going to jump into both perspectives on that matter on the other side. So everybody stay right where you are, and we'll be back in just a little bit. You're listening to Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY. All right. DSL says, I don't like it. The government can't run anything properly, but I suppose they can't do much worse, and it's better than being monopolized. Well, I mean, in some ways, they do operate as a monopoly, but as long as we have access to the books, which is a big if. But if we have access to the books, that's kind of the important part there. A lot of people, you're going to realize, especially here in Wisconsin, a lot of the gubernatorial race is going to be based on energy rates, and I can already see the Republicans trying to put this on Tony Evers, and the Democrats really haven't worked on any kind of messaging about it yet. But the fact is, nationwide, energy rates are up something like 43% over the course of the last couple years. I don't have the stats in front of me, and a lot of that is profit. And so the utilities are a monopoly. They're technically government run, and you can't pick your utility. We've had this conversation before. The utility owns the telephone poles. You can't pick new telephone poles outside of your house. Wherever you move, that determines which utility you have. You really don't have a choice. It's not a matter of like it still technically is a monopoly. So it's just a matter of finding that sweet spot. It's a matter of running it for profit versus running it as a service that should just be available for us to be able to get from A to B. Oftentimes, progressives talk about how ubiquitous speed rail is in Europe because it's a smaller surface area. I'd argue they can build quicker, as can China, for reasons I'll never fully understand. The closest thing we have to that is our airport system. So we should, in my opinion, we should be working towards nationalizing that, because the cost of traveling, Jason Zimmerman and I complain about it every single Friday at 8:35. He travels all the time, and he sees the ways that he gets dinged extra. It feels like every time he ends up getting on an airplane. Now, a lot of that is for pleasure and not for necessity, but not everybody's funneled into that category there. So I think that's worth highlighting as well. But I hear where you're coming from, and it's pretty hard to avoid. And Hal says, considering Trump has given American forces the order to shoot and kill the Iranian mine lane ships, I would say the answer is yes. Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a second here. That's about the Iran war. Because I also wanted to hit people saying, asking me in the YouTube chat here, saying, I'm not sure how I feel about socializing losses. We've socialized losses my entire life, probably most of your entire lives. Every time a major institution gambles and loses, we bail them out with our tax dollars. To a certain extent, that's what this is. This $500 million is a bailout. If you remember correctly, there was a while during the Obama administration when we bailed out the auto industry, where the government owned a percentage of those companies for a while, until things kind of leveled out. And Republicans stood up with one voice and screamed, "That's socialism!" And then, of course, now that Donald Trump's doing it, it's one of the best ideas they've ever heard in their life. Do not call them stupid. I will get fired. But we've socialized losses our entire life. I'd say it's about time that we socialize the gains. I'd argue it's about time that we start seeing the benefits of this kind of stuff if our tax dollars are going to be thrown into this here. Because again, I think air travel is a necessity for a functioning society. I think access to energy is a necessity for a functioning society. If costs have to go up, so be it. But if those costs going up parallel to record profits for the companies raising those rates to travel, raising the kilowatts per hour on your energy bill, well, then I think I have an issue with that, and we're going to have a real conversation about what's happening here. We've been socializing losses our entire lives. It's about time to socialize a gain. Jerry says, where did that go? But every time the orange man says 2 weeks, I'm reminded of Total Recall. 2 weeks, the redheaded woman. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good reference. Doug says, if we nationalize the airports, they'll be shut down every time the government is. Let's privatize TSA. Get out of here with that nonsense. I'm not in favor. All I see when we privatize things is we're going to have a super expensive TSA. That's the only thing I see happening if we do that. We're going to have to pay a crap ton of money just to be scanned by a metal detector. I don't want any part of that lifetime or that lifestyle. I say we just do the right thing here. But I do appreciate the input nevertheless. And I see Jacqueline talking about the war. We will get to that in a second. We've got one call. This will probably put a bow on the airport travel and energy stuff, and then we'll kick gears into the Iran war here. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Yeah, good morning, Ben. It's Gary calling. Say, you're talking about the airports. I don't know about my memory, but seems to me it used to be that, and you can check with Abe Weber on this whole airport thing, but it seems to me that the government, the federal government, funds, I believe it's like 90% of improvements at airports, and then the state kicks in a little bit, maybe 5% or whatever. But there's a split. It's kind of similar to the interstate highway system, where they pay 90% and then the state pays whatever 10%, and we get on with our lives. So all those airports are funded by the federal government. Now, I thought I heard you say one time that government shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers. Well,
absolutely.
We have the Corps engineers doing the waterway system, funding the locks and the improvements on the Mississippi, building levees and whatnot. And we have some money stuck in railroads, and we do it for airports. And so you got the operational costs, and then they pay a fee for landing fees and slots, and they buy and sell those things right and left, and gobble them up to try to improve their hub and spoke system to their advantage. That what they do is they skim the cream off the top, and then they, like the smaller communities, they all end up on the losing end of the deal. And yet it takes the whole system to work to make the hub and spoke thing pay off in the long run, but they kind of neglect the small airports. But the little ones, even like Appleton, they get a ton of federal money to do improvements. Every time they put a fence up or pave a runway or a taxiway, they're gobbling up federal money. And yet we say, don't let the government in, mess with my business. But then everybody wants the government to pay for their transportation. And one way or another, the taxpayer is on the hook. So
yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, Gary. And I mean, just out of curiosity, before I let you go, when it comes to airlines, not all industries, but when it comes to airlines, does that seem like it seems like a reasonable expenditure of tax dollars, though? No, because having access to air travel conveniently located feels like a net benefit for everybody involved. Like that's how taxes are supposed to work. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, and even for the utilities, when you talk electric utilities, don't forget, once they put that pole in the ground and string that wire, that's a one-time fee until they come back, 40, 50 years later, if there's a storm to repair it. But the ongoing costs, for the electricity, the generation and all that, those are, like operational costs. They're variable. And the fixed cost, like, for example, in a subdivision, if you have large, 5-acre lots and you got to run that line past everybody, just like a roadway, the general taxpayer's on the hook for that, or the ratepayer is. And once it's done, it's done. Now pumping the electricity through the line, that can vary, and you're explaining that with these data centers. They're sucking a lot of electricity through the line, so they got to build bigger and better lines and have American Transmission or somebody else put it up.
And they're looking for subsidized energy on their part. And I appreciate the call, Gary, and you're exactly right. It's corporate welfare. The only welfare that the MAGA brigade will champion is the welfare that goes to the wealthiest people among us, and that's wild. We got another call coming in. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Yeah, morning.
What's up,
just
Dave?
a word about the bullet trains. They're wonderful. I've been on them in Europe and in Japan, and it's a problem in America. The freight lines own the lines. The Amtrak and that is kind of piggyback on their ownership of the freight lines own the substandard railway system as it is. They started it. They got land on way back when we had the Continental Divide where the two trains met up and whatever. They were given land ownership on each side of that railway way back when, and the whole system never was public minded. It was just always profit for the robber barons and whatnot.
Oh, sure. Yeah. What else is new? And like, you're exactly right. And it doesn't do us any favors when the Democrats, the people who allegedly are the people in favor of building this stuff and get an opportunity to do so in a place like California, take billions of dollars, build 13 miles of rail over the course of however long, and then kind of be like, well, we tried our best. And I appreciate the call, Dave. But yeah, I'm right there with you on the assessment there. But like, this kind of highlights what everybody's been saying here, right? There's examples of this across every industry. I mean, hell, I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people working for tips right now that got the no tax on tips across. They were absolutely livid at the prospect of student loan forgiveness. And yet the no tax on tips isn't a handout to them. That's something that they earned. And it's just remarkable to me, the cognitive dissonance necessary for people to try and make sense about this kind of stuff here. And as Matt highlights, Spirit Airlines is already special pricing for low-income passengers. I don't know what kind of, it's hard for me to keep up with everything you guys are saying there, so I don't know how that ties in exactly. I don't know why I keep trying to do that. You guys kind of have your own thing going there, and I love that. But so in any event, that's my thoughts there on Donald Trump, Comrade Trump, and his socialist endeavors into society. As long as DSL stated his frustration with it. If you're frustrated with it, cool. That's an okay way to feel. All I'm saying is that if you're not making a peep, as we watch, let's say, let me pick a name out of a hat randomly. Oh, I don't know. Gubernatorial candidate of Wisconsin, Tom Tiffany. As we watch him say nothing about socialism as a result of Donald Trump's decision here in the airline, I will be interested if he's going to try and demonize whatever candidate he ends up running against down the line. Only time will tell, of course. On to Iran. I think we have hit the point, personally, where I think this is going to be going on much longer. And I think we all kind of felt that because, as I've kind of been highlighting, Donald Trump has always been a 2 more weeks kind of president, right? Oh, yeah, we'll get healthcare in 2 more weeks. He said that in 2017. We don't have healthcare. Actually, it's way more expensive than it was. Way more expensive than it was. A lot less people have access to it under Republican watch. But, something about a rainbow flag. I don't know. I lost the plot sometimes. I question whether or not we are in a forever war or not, and allow me to explain why. As it stands right now, Iran is still embroiled in a blockade. And as a result of that blockade, that is kind of why they have made it clear they have no interest in picking up talks about a ceasefire, about a long-term peace deal until this blockade ends, because it's strangling them economically. They see it as aggressive. They say if you want to actually engage in good faith, then we need to be able to have access to this strait. There's also the element lingering over America's head that at 2 separate moments, the Trump administration used peace negotiations to act in violence. And so there's a trust factor in general coming from that perspective against the American population. Conversely, the fact that the blockade is still enacted is costing the people of Iran 500 million, not the people, let's be real, the oligarchs of Iran, $500 million every single day. Every day that the boats cannot traverse the strait, coming for Iran specifically, because obviously they've been blocking it from everybody else for a while. But now that America is blocking their ships, they're losing $500 million every day. And it becomes a matter of how long can the Iranian regime hold out. As Jerry Poder and I were talking about yesterday, there also comes the benefit of Donald Trump technically is beholden to Republicans in Congress. They need to win elections in November. And if this is going on and the cost of gas is trending the way it is, back over $100 per barrel again, we really haven't even felt the impacts on the actual shipping industries yet, whether that be via 18-wheelers or literal ships, whatever the situation may be, the fertilizer costs. There's going to be more costs incurred as a result of Donald Trump's unilateral movement to start a war. And yes, presidents do not single-handedly have an impact on the cost of gas, but they also very rarely unilaterally start a war. The reason the cost of gas is so much, the reason the price per barrel of oil is so expensive is explicitly because of the decisions made by Donald Trump. If we were doing outside the box in Australia, we would be able to say, man, this isn't the fault of our prime minister. It's the fault of that moron over there in America. But we're not doing the show in Australia. We're doing the show in America. So the actually increased cost of living is directly as a result of the guy in the White House deciding to start this war, because I think he foolishly thought that it was going to be over quickly. If you haven't seen the video I posted yesterday on any of my socials, Donald Trump is taking credit for saving 8 people in Iran from execution. And there's a reason why this is relevant. Fox News is running it up the flagpole. There seems to be a pretty strong consensus that they are AI and generated by an Israeli group called Generative AI for Good, creating 8 women as well as 1 woman who essentially is a survivor of sexual assault that isn't even a real person, an Iranian woman trying to gin up the emotions of Americans to be more in favor of the war that's going on. Glenn Greenwald, who I have a lot of respect for, kind of wired similarly to the way that I do this show. I used a segment of his, or an article of his on my show on Friday, talking about the concept of a rotating villain, talking about how there's always one Democrat, when they have the capacity to change things, that will vote against the positive measures that everybody wants to see happen. Conversely, he's also willing to hold conservatives to account, saying for the people who decided to believe that those 8 Iranian women in those pictures spread by Israeli propagandists were to be imminently executed by Iran, and also believe Trump's claim that he heroically saved them, can you point to any evidentiary basis for these claims? So he's willing to hold liberals to account. Now he's willing to hold MAGA to account. And I'm kind of following the exact same pathway in the exact same ways, which I think is a solid place to be. This seems to have been disproven, and yet the White House social media accounts are taking credit for saving these 8 people. Fox News has articles up right now commending the president for his effort to save these women. Meanwhile, as Hal pointed out in the text line, Trump has given American forces the order to shoot and kill Iranian mine lane ships. We've been bombing the crap out of their country for the last almost 2 months at this point. I find it hard to believe that they actually care about the lives of these 8 women. As Ethan just messaged, imagine bragging about 8 women being saved while also bombing a school. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It doesn't add up in any kind of conceivable way. And that's kind of the point, Ethan. And that's why I think we're in deeper in this war than we realized. I'm a big psychology guy. I psychoanalyze this madman in the White House on a regular basis. And it seems to me like he is looking for any victory he can possibly tout right now for the MAGA brigade to run up the flagpole, because we are in for the long haul. There's reports coming out saying that it's going to take at least 6 months before we are able to clear out the Strait of Hormuz. If the conflict ended today and we were able to achieve a peace deal, and we were able to find out some way forward to be able to work together, we would be 6 months away today from truly feeling safe navigating the Strait of Hormuz. And I hate to break it to you, we are nowhere near that case. I've been watching old interviews of people from the Obama administration talking about how their back and forth went. Because oftentimes when people talk about the JCPOA, they say it took about 20 months to hammer out the details. And what they leave out about that is that for 3 years before that 20 months, it's their words, not mine. I call politics kabuki theater all the time, but I'm not even using this. These are not my words. They said they were doing kabuki theater, going to these meetings, pretending that olive branches were being extended, pretending that movement was being made, pretending that there was an effort to come to some kind of agreement, and that for 3 years it was all a facade. And it wasn't until the 37th month that they were able to get things rolling. Now, there wasn't a blockade. I can't stress enough. Iran is losing $500 million a day as a result of what the American military is doing in the Strait of Hormuz. Does that work? Will that get them where they need to go, or are they prepared to fight for the long haul? That's the gamble that's happening right now. And you guys know me. I like to pretend like I do the show from the future and that I make a lot of bold predictions, and an unusual percentage of those predictions do end up becoming accurate, becoming true. I am not willing to say that this is a guaranteed forever war yet, but I'm willing to say that this is going to go much longer than the 2 to 6 weeks that we were promised, especially considering the fact that we're in the middle of week 8. So I feel like that prediction is going to be a foregone conclusion, but I don't foresee any type of solution. If you do the math, 6 months. We get an agreement today. 6 months from today is October 23rd. That would be 10 days before the November elections for the midterms. That is not going to be enough in order to get a lot of people on board with what you're doing here. And that is assuming that the ball got rolling today, and it isn't going to. Odds are pointing to, unless these guys in Iran are playing chicken, and I do not get that vibe right now, at least, that this is going to be for the long haul. The core principle of MAGA, no new wars, especially forever wars, seems to have been undone. It seems like that's the end of that claim, and I will forever be an anti-war leftist. It was awful when the Biden administration did it. They armed and funded a genocide in Gaza. They contributed to a conflict between Russia and Ukraine that I believe could have been solved diplomatically. And those are the segments that we did here. And Donald Trump did not need to start this war. We need an actually anti-war leftist. And what's crazy is Rick hit me up with an email. I did not get a chance to read the article, but he sent me an opinion article from the failing New York Times saying Graham Plattner went to hell and back, talking about his experience serving in the armed forces. He has a simple message for Democrats. As I mentioned, I had to skim it very quickly, but the basic message of what he's saying is that it is such an obvious slam dunk to be opposed to the war. I cannot get past the sinking feeling that the Democrats are not opposed to this war in office. The Democrats in office are not opposed to this war. They are opposed to Donald Trump acting this way. Democrats in office are not opposed to renewing FISA. They are opposed to renewing FISA under Donald Trump and will be happy to do it when they're not. Graham Plattner's message, the progressive message to politicians, is be staunchly anti-war and waka, waka, waka away with a victory. And I don't think they're doing a good job of selling that. I think they're arguing over semantics. I think they're not arguing about the value. They're arguing about the price. And that is the way that Democrats are handling this. And that's not going to be enough to convince me that they actually mean business. We got a call coming on through here. Let's see who we have. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Good morning, Ben. Cynthia in Florida. I'm going to deal with the generative AI for good in a second. Well, in a second. A major MAGA supporter, General Phelan, was fired from the Navy because he was not going to go along with Hegseth. And there's many of these people who are not going to follow unlawful orders. The wheels are falling off of this war effort. We're also running out of weapons. I read Somalia is going to close the strait over there for traffic. And remember what happened with Black Hawk Down. But this AI for good is a recap of what we went through with the beheaded baby lies, with the rape lies. And, you know, it is really disgusting that they committed psychological warfare on their own citizens in Israel to do this, and created all of the bloodlust So they didn't even care about the deaths of the Palestinians and land that they wanted to steal anyway. And they're doing it again in Lebanon. This woman needs to be brought up before the Hague, the woman that created this. And I looked her up. She also was a party of NATO's cognitive warfare newsletter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So she's just drenched in all of it then. Yeah, that's remarkable. I appreciate the insight. I'll tell you what, I saw the what's the remind me again the name of the Navy commander there. What was the name again?
His name is Phelan. Phela.
Yes, Phelan. I've
I
been
believe.
seeing smatterings of that story and haven't been able to dive into it. So I appreciate the insight on it there.
I called somebody that I know last night who's in the Navy Department, and they told me he was a huge MAGA supporter. People are furious that he was fired.
Oh, wow. Okay. Goes straight. I appreciate the call. It's because there are people. I believe this is true of a lot of organizations, honestly. There are people that actually believe the talking points that MAGA espouses, just like any other group. But the people at top very rarely mean this stuff. It's like Frank Reynolds said in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You're either the duper or the dupee, and he prefers to be the duper. And it seems as though there's a lot of people in high-ranking positions that actually believed the things that were campaigned on and are not comfortable with the trajectory. Thankfully, we have the drunk DEI defense secretary to push through a bunch of unpopular things, because what's he going to do? Think for himself, please. We got to squeeze one more break in here before we call it a first hour. We're going to go to break. We'll have a short segment on the other side before we get to the top of the hour news. Stay where you are. Outside the Box, WHBY. All right, guys, we just have a little bit of time before we have to call it a first hour of the show here. Jaramani in the text line saying, in all honesty, we haven't been given a good choice for president for a very long time, in my opinion. And I'm kind of wired the exact same way here. And I think that kind of lends itself to this armed conflict scenario. I was just talking with my TikTok live chat during the commercial break, and I was saying it's very disheartening to try and do consistent talk radio because everybody else will make excuses for why their candidate's reason for war, whether it be defending democracy and establishing rights for women or terrorism and the proliferation of nukes, all these different reasons to funnel hundreds of billions of dollars into the military industrial complex while ignoring reasons to build back home. Um, it's very disheartening to try and keep up with that here, and I'm not convinced that we have a party that is actively against this war in Iran. I think Democrats are licking their chops to have an opportunity to win the election in November and then give us all the reasons why they have to continue along with what Donald Trump did. Because, oh, he's just so darn disorganized that we had to undo everything he did. We'll have plenty more to say about that on the other side of the news. And I would like to highlight before we get here, because I have a partnership here with Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, as you guys know. And I want to remind you that what's better than Googling a plumber and hoping for the best is checking out the reviews and seeing your neighbors already trust and love them. Roush Plumbing has the Google reviews to back it up. Fox Valley homeowners are raving about the fast, friendly, reliable service. And here's something you don't see every day: a free text line to a real plumber. You got a question before you schedule? Text it. Sometimes that's all you need. And with spring rains coming, don't wait to make sure your sump pump is ready. Call or text Roush Plumbing, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. Find that free text line at timroushplumbing.com. Gerrymandering in Virginia on the other side of the news. This is Outside the Box. Hello, we're back. Outside the Box, Ben Cominos, WHBY, Political Voices Network. Outside the Box is brought to you by Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. If you're just joining us, we talked about Comrade Trump's efforts to socialize Spirit Airlines in an effort to save them from bankruptcy. I actually, by the way, saw that Joe had emailed me during that segment saying that he would rather see it absorbed by one of the other airlines. I'm done with mergers, man. If there's one thing I can say, the last thing this nation needs anymore is more corporate consolidation. I think these guys have consolidated as far as they need to go. And if anything, we should be breaking up mergers, not trying to find ways to consolidate even further. Because I'll tell you right now, they'll absorb Spirit Airlines, keep the crappy nature of their planes, but charge you standard rates. And that's the last thing that I would like to be a part of in America. So definitely a no to that. Again, I'm actually in favor of Comrade Trump's effort. I just am looking for some consistency from the people that will inevitably call the Democratic candidate for governor a socialist, or will inevitably call the 2028 candidate for president a socialist. Well, there's a socialist in office right now, and it doesn't seem like the large majority of people in office or people in the country are willing to call him out for what he's doing here, which, if you're cool with it, cool. Just stay consistent. That's all it's about. It's the only way we move forward. If you're going to say, man, what a great idea from my orange dad president, and then immediately condemn an idea to rein in corporate greed when people are trying to address prices, we're going to go around in circles. So it's just a matter of consistency. We then pivoted to a conversation about Iran. Are we in a forever war? It's kind of starting to feel more and more like a yes. There's still a chance, given the economic strife that the people of Iran are going through. There's a chance maybe if the oligarchs get loud enough, that will be a problem. But I don't know that that's going to be the case. $500 million a day, is that going to be what pushes the country to try and seek some kind of quick peace solution relative to what took place during the JCPOA? Only time will tell, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm going to be honest with you here. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Oh, and of course, Donald Trump saving 8 fake AI women from being hung and then bragging about it, and then Fox News doing a segment about it in just one of the most embarrassing examples of state TV I've ever seen in my life. What was it called? Generative AI for Good. It's an Israeli-based operation designed essentially to tug at the heartstrings of more left-leaning individuals who are actually anti-war. Because as I often highlight, Democrats are just as pro-war in office. Democrats are just as pro-war as the Republican Party are, but the messaging changes. It's not about nuclear proliferation. It's not about terrorism. It's about human rights. It's about democracy. It's about how women are being treated. Stevie in my TikTok chat says AI will end the boomers. Well, you know what's funny, man, is I remember during the Hillary election, it was like the fakest stuff ever. It was like a meme that I describe it as a meme a 14-year-old wouldn't fall for. And but a bunch of people were in their 60s were like, can you believe this story in the meme that I saw? And then now it's actually super realistic. Because I'm becoming more active in social media, I'm starting to see things that I was completely oblivious to as a guy in his 30s that didn't do social media for a decade. There's an entire industry. This is not fake. There's an entire industry of people that make super cheap watches that look expensive, and then they create AI videos of hot goth girls trying to sell the watches and getting bullied by guys that look like they've got the collared shirts on, and they look all proper, and the watches are selling like hotcakes, and it's all fabricated. It's all AI, and it's so obviously AI. Is somebody who deals not deals in technology, but is surrounded by technology all the time. As a millennial, I'd argue I'm probably more up to date per capita than the average person in their 60s or 70s. And there's this whole industry of fake goth women selling cheap watches for inflated prices. And it's man, What a strange time to be alive, you know? And like, I can see this, but then my brother or a relative of mine will share these videos. I'm like, no, this isn't real. There was a video that the NFL was going to start doing Wednesday night football and play it at Disney World every week. And a person I respect very much sent it to me. I'm like, man, if you're falling for this, there is no chance that we have to actually continue to push back against this. And I think as you get older, not like in time, I mean demographically, the older the demographic gets, the harder it is for them to be able to discern real from fake. But this goth watch thing is absolutely wild. It's going to be very difficult, because I'm telling you right now, these 8 Iranian hostages, I cannot confirm 100% that they're fake. My gut's telling me it's a pretty clear, like I'm like, there's enough people I respect telling me that it's not a real story, and there's enough entities that I don't respect trying to pretend like it's real. And then the worst part is, you see a social media post about it, and it's from like some diehard Israel's never in the wrong person. And then they'll make a comment, be like, God bless Donald Trump in his effort to save America and these 8 Iranian women and ba, 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 ba. And then the next 50 comments underneath are all very clearly bots saying word for word the same thing, championing what happened. And if you are inclined to believe what they said, like I got a guy in my text line right now, liberals do nothing but hate America. Seems like you commies should move to China if you hate America so much. Well, I guess I'll bring Comrade Trump with me, because he just bought 90% of a stake in Spirit Airlines. Waka waka MAGA. But I say all that to say, people like this guy are going to actually believe what they see, because they're inclined to believe the dumb things that they see. And these women look real. The woman talking about her experience surviving sexual assault looks real. And you have to go 2 and 3 sources deep before you get to the bottom of it. And I'm not infallible either. I very famously shared a video of the stupid Baltimore Ravens announcing that they were not accepting an endorsement from Elon Musk, because I don't like Elon Musk. And I was so excited that I shared it. And like, as a Steelers fan, I can't stand the Ravens, but this is awesome. And my friend and coworker Haley Tenpass is the only reason that I realized I had goofed. And then I immediately made the clarification once I realized I made the mistake. We're all susceptible to this if you move quickly and don't triple check your sources. My job is to triple check the sources. If your job is accountant, or your job is school teacher, or your job is construction worker, you don't necessarily have the time to go and check, wait, are these 8 Iranian hostages real? No, of course not. If you are a Trump supporter, you're going to be like, isn't my dad president great? And if you're a liberal, you're going to be like, this is obviously fabricated. He just blew up a school. Why would I believe that he cares anything about this? It's a very surreal time to be alive. And as Larry says, can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's absolutely real. And DSL saying here, what's the difference between Trump saving AI women and the SPLC paying the states? And of course, it's going to take a while alone, paying and staging hate just to keep raking in the money. I've been seeing that story, DSL, and that's another one. Because if you don't know me, if you've never heard this show before, if you weren't listening in the beginning of 2025, I have a pretty foolproof way of knowing when fake news is fake news. You go and watch what Elon Musk is supporting, and then you position yourself 100% diametrically opposed to whatever he said. And inevitably, you will find out over time that that was the right move, and that whatever he was saying, he was either mistaken or flat out lying. And he's been one of the loudest voices about this SPLC thing. So I'm sitting there because I don't trust the government. And DSL, you yourself gave me one of the best talking points ever about those Patriot Front movements and all that, because they're all so jacked and also in shape. And like, I've seen what people in America look like, and there's no way in hell that you can get that many people in one group, all like-minded, looking like that. There's something suspicious about it. I'm right there with you, but I don't know if the story's real or not. It's the same thing with the AI women. And I'm sitting there as a guy who basically has the same access to information that the rest of you guys do, trying to figure out, is this AI? Is this AI or is this real? Is this SPLC thing actually a thing, or is this just another Benghazi? Are they trying to distract from the fact that they will not release prosecute anybody on the list, and they're just trying to throw any red meat they can at the base to distract from the list that has been pretty well distracted from since the war started, if I do say so myself. And I don't know what the answer to that question is. And it's just like there's a lot of people. The worst part is, if I played along, if I committed to some of these stories one way or the other, foolproof, 100% factually accurate, my following would probably be growing a lot quicker than it is trying to actually figure stuff out and provide information in a way that is actually truthful. And what sucks is I believe that's what people claim that they want, but I don't believe that it's what people actually want. And that's the hardest thing to reconcile with. And all you can do is your best, right? But it's only going to get more confusing. As I oftentimes tell you, we are in the original Nintendo era of AI. Give it 5 years, give it 20 years. Good luck. And we've got a bunch of people in Congress that need their staffers to help them open their emails on their iPhones, that we're expecting to know how to regulate this stuff before it becomes too pervasive in society. I just don't see that happening. What do you do about foreign nations trying to infiltrate? I see these Iranian Lego music videos that will probably get me on a list for saying it, but they bang. They're so catchy. They are so catchy, and they are all over social media. It's such a strange time. It's such a strange time right now. And the craziest part is, give it 3 more months and we're in the throes of the midterms. Right now, it's kind of simple, right? We're still 7 months away from needing to worry about who we're voting for or who's going to be on the ballot. I can already tell the levers are being flipped on Twitter. That site is borderline unusable at this point. All it is the SLPC or SPLC story that DSL is talking about, and a whole bunch of pro Tom Tiffany posts. And that is quite literally all I see. And I used to use that app as an awesome news wire that gave me stories about union successes around the nation and about small towns being exploited by major corporations in one way or another. And now it's a bunch of posts about how much dumber women are than men, and about how there's an immigrant scourge taking over Europe and America. And on top of all of it is this Nazi salute and jag trying to force this SPLC story on anybody that will listen. And my best advice, if you ever take anything from me, when you see Elon Musk say anything, run 100% in the opposite direction, and 2/3 of the time you will be borne out to have made the right decision. First call of the hour. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
A little advice: you need to say your number to call for more often. Okay, I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. The other thing is, I got 2 things. One is, I listen to you once in a big while, but I'm talking to you about, I'm more of a Trump person, okay? Very much a Trump, but I'm very leery right now about the war. I was very pro it. I believe you're right. We need to cut our losses and get out. Because I was in the military 22 years. The only way you win a war is by ground troops. I hate to see that. You're not going to win it by bombing.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think that's spot on. And I mean, obviously, having never served myself, that's why I use the platform the way I do. I advocate to avoid that, because I don't think there's anything worse than the people out there that advocate for this kind of stuff that never actually had the guts. And I want to use a different word, but we're on FCC airwaves, that never had the guts to actually do what you did and so many other people listening. So I think your position here is the common sense position. And like, do you say that kind of stuff? Are a lot of the people in your lives Trump people? Like, do you come out and say that, and do you get ridiculed, or do you see them supporting it despite being anti-wars when Biden was in office?
Well, I see more that Democrats do not want to talk ever about politics. They will already, anything but politics. They're willing to talk to religion. And I believe this, but they got other reasons. But when you talk politics, they seem that, I think, they can't defend themselves. But they're probably saying it only leads into arguments. So it's you can go both ways.
I think most liberals just can't even don't stand for anything, especially in office.
Yeah.
I think a lot of liberals don't stand for anything. Like MAGA stands for stuff. A lot of stuff I don't agree with, but they'll vociferously defend what they're saying. I think the Democratic Party tries their damnedest to not actually commit to anything and see if they can win elections. They ran an entire election on January 6th in 2024. We saw how that worked out. I don't think you're too far off on your assessment with that one.
See, I'd like to see we eliminate, and I'm just saying this mandering. I hate one does one does the next. It's so bad that we'll never have control of our country by what the people really want, because we deny people. But both parties are so guilty of it that it bothers me, you know.
Yeah,
and
I'm right there with you, man.
Like I say, I like Trump so much, but he makes so many, because he's not a politician, but he makes so many determinations that aren't true. And I don't know about this woman. I could care less. And we need to get out of all this stuff and I don't want to be an isolationist, but we need to be close to that. We're supporting countries that can do it themselves, but we want to always do stuff where we can control more.
Right there with you. I think that was well said. I appreciate you calling. And like this conversation you and I are having is what America needs. And I like it sounds dramatic, but like I'm definitely not a Trump person. And you just said the words, I love Trump. And look at the way we can have this kind of discourse about how neither of us really feel like what we think the country needs is being met right now. And I think there needs to be a lot more of this. So thank you for taking the time to call.
Bye.
Yeah, take it easy. Good stuff there. Don't necessarily agree with everything he said, but that's not the point. Because we're not the same person, we're not supposed to be able to agree. As Matt in my TikTok chat says, more people voted for nobody than any other party in 2024. And that's actually true of every candidate, of every election, presidential election. The couch wins every single time because inevitably they block the popular candidate, whether it be Ron Paul or Bernie Sanders or whomever, however far you go back. There's always an effort to block the candidates or kneecap the candidates that actually are speaking towards the needs of what the masses actually want and are looking for. Again, just in the last 12 months, you can see liberals doing it. And you watch them try to do it to Mamdani in New York. You're watching them currently try to do it to Graham Plattner in Maine as we speak. And you know what the guy in Maine is saying, Graham Plattner is saying, is he's saying that he is a pro-gun lefty. I say that all the time. I am not a ban the AR-15. I'm not a ban specific guns. I'm a make sure you keep guns out of the hands of violent people kind of lefty, because that is a sign of things to come. If you've engaged in domestic violence, there's a 68% higher chance that you're going to shoot somebody with your gun. I don't think that is an infringement on the Second Amendment to say if you hit your spouse, you don't get to have a gun anymore. Like that feels like a pretty basic way to be able to address this without infringing on what people want to do, and making sure that people can defend themselves. Because Lord knows the further I get into this career, the less I trust the government, regardless of who's in power. And I think I can understand why people are talking that way. And Chuck Schumer, Janet Mills, and the rest of the Blue MAGA consortium is doing everything they possibly can to prevent him from rising to the top. Much like they did Mamdani, much like they do Bernie Sanders, much like they do El Said in Michigan. Anytime you're willing to call out Israel, championing, pushing back against the military-industrial complex and pharmaceutical companies, all of a sudden you have become unelectable in the eyes of the Democratic elite. And their job is to try and convince everybody else that that is an accurate statement. And I genuinely believe they would go as far as voting for the Republican candidate if a true leftist were actually the one competing on the other side. I genuinely believe in 2024, had the race been Bernie Sanders versus Nikki Haley, a lot of liberals would have been voting for Nikki Haley. And that, to me, to that caller's, and for all I know, what I'm saying is making that previous caller's blood boil. That's my perspective of things. The difference between MAGA and liberals is Donald Trump rose to prominence. Republicans weren't happy about it. There's playlist after playlist after playlist of every Republican you can name calling Trump Hitler, calling him a jerk, saying he's incompetent, saying he's going to ruin the country. And now those people won't say a single negative thing about him, even when he does socialism. So, like, eventually, the realities of the situation have to kick in. And whether or not that is breaking the parties up into at least 4 parties, whether that's some kind of reconciliation, whatever the matter is, that has to be it. But what sucks most of all, and I realize I haven't even touched on gerrymandering and I've been talking for 20 minutes, but what sucks most of all is that this administration is so uniquely bad, that the economy has gotten so bad, that the foreign policy has gotten so bad, that the environmental policy has gotten so bad. Have you seen that they knocked away over $800 or $750 million away from national parks nationwide? That'll fund Trump's war for 20 hours. And they decided to cut out $750 million from natural parks or national parks. Why? Why? Who was asking for that? Was that what part of the campaign was? I don't think so. Every single policy he is doing is such an obvious net negative, other than border security, that a liberal is going to have a pretty easy time of winning because people are scared and they don't know what the future is going to hold. And a return to 2024 is going to look downright appetizing, despite the fact that 2024 is what drove us to Trump in the first place. It's almost like Democrats maintain an unacceptable status quo. Republicans drag us so far away from that status quo that people wake up 4 years later and say, please, baby Jesus, give me that status quo back, because this is just straight up unacceptable. Justin says, falling for AI videos reminds me of people using military simulation style games like Arna 3 or combat fighting sims like DCS for footage that was degraded just enough to look realistic. I always picked up on it because I play those games. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. There's a lot of people that share that type of stuff. I'm not even sure I know some of the abbreviations that you're using there, but there's plenty of games like that I'm thinking of that, as stuff gets more real, you absolutely can convince people that footage from an AC-130 is real when it's actually a kill streak on Call of Duty. Like, that's absolutely a possibility. Mickey says, I heard the same news about the 8 hostages on CBS Live 24/7. It's on their app. I think this was the 3 o'clock episode. They had an Iranian woman praising Trump, for saving them, but they never shared the pictures. I'm so confused if it's real or not. Exactly. And CBS News was also just recently purchased, and I call them CBS Newsmax for a reason. All right. We're going to squeeze a break in here. Clearly, this was one of those squirrel moments that Jaramani has accused me of engaging in from time to time. And we'll come back, and then we'll actually do this gerrymandering conversation. If you have not seen the way the Washington Post is talking about it, brace for impact, because as we all know, democracy dies at the Washington Post. We're going to talk about this hypocrisy going forward and the fact that a judge has put a hold on it for now. I personally am not mad. We're going to dive into that too. All of that and more coming up, and to the benefit of our recent caller there. If anybody else would like to chime in, 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. Please do call and text in if you want to get your thoughts in on the program as well here. I'm going to scroll the chat, see what's going on there, and we'll go from there. You're listening to Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY. Hey guys, Mother's Day is going to be here soon, and WHBY wants to celebrate Mom with another edition of Holidays with Haley. Listen weekdays from 11 to 1 during Focus Fox Valley with Haley 10 Pass for your chance to win a gift for the mom in your life. Holidays with Haley, Mother's Day edition with Fleet Farm, Nemus Southside Market, Von Obels, a Hollandtown Memorial Florist, and Refine MD. Of course, WHBY as well. See all the gifts you could win at WHBY.com. For those of you listening that are finding the show from outside the state, WHBY is the radio station that you are watching or listening to this show on. Please consider downloading that WHBY app as well. Help out a local radio station here in a world where so much of the media is corporate, bought, and paid for. We try and keep it real here. I'm like the only diehard political show, but there's a lot of good information here. All right, and with that, I finally am going to get to the point, as everybody in the YouTube chat is freaking sharing squirrel and chipmunk emojis because I tend to get a bit distracted. If you guys knew how hard this life was. We talked about gerrymandering for the better part of an hour. I yelled a lot yesterday. My throat was sore when I got off the air. It was one of those kind of moments because similar to the Spirit Airlines and socialism conversation, it's a matter of consistency. It's reaping what you've sown. This did not start with Texas. This most recent back and forth started with Texas, but gerrymandering's as old as redistricting. It is not something new. Both sides do it. We covered the basics of it. There is a slight to more than slight majority for the Republican Party based on the way states are gerrymandered in America today, with a lot of things saying anywhere between 2 and 16 seats plus in favor of conservatives across the entire nation. Not to say that liberal hands are clean, but there's a reason why for the last 10 years, the Democratic Party has been proposing ways to block partisan gerrymandering, and the Republican Party has blocked any of those efforts. It's mostly because the gerrymandering benefited them more than it did Democrats, so why would you get rid of an explicit advantage for yourself? I understand it, but then you don't get to turn around and cry foul when inevitably the other party ends up catching up with the way that you're doing things. I say all of that to say I am anti-gerrymandering because I believe that a liberal gerrymandered district is just as dangerous as a conservative one. We just watched, and I know Clean and Sober Living on the YouTube channel listens from California, we just watched the Democratic supermajority block universal health care statewide in California. And here I was thinking if I voted blue, no matter who, I would get the kind of things that they seem to campaign on all the time. But in the liberal bastion of California, I never have to go back to the times of Arnold Schwarzenegger to highlight the way that they used to circumvent doing any kind of single payer or universal health care. I can go to Monday now. They just did it again. This is what happens when people feel too safe. It seems like no matter what the system is, they always find a way to allow this for-profit healthcare system to completely fleece us to the best of their ability. Here's the kicker, though. Not the failing New York Times, excuse me. It's Democracy Dies at the Washington Post. Has an article out. I posted this up on one of my socials. I can't remember which. It's from August 20th, 2025. It's an opinion article for the record. They're not reporting it as news, but just for some perspective here. It's the editorial board. It's not even a specific author. It is the editorial board. Both of the articles will be. You might already be able to know where this segment's going just based on the way I'm setting it up. I'm now going to read you the headline as well as the subtitle for that article. Again, August 20, 2025. The Texas gerrymander freakout. What's happening in the Lone Star states is not a threat to democracy. I'd have to agree with that sentiment because, again, that was not the first effort for gerrymandering. It was the weirdest effort. It was an effort almost essentially exclusively called upon by Donald Trump and the far-right government of Texas to do without a vote or anything like that. But a threat to democracy, I think that might be a stretch. But so the Texas gerrymander freakout, what's happening in the Lone Star State is not a threat to democracy. That was on August 20th of last year. April 21st of this year, 2 days ago. Virginia plunges America deeper into the gerrymandering abyss. The redistricting scheme was always a power grab by Democrats, and voters went along with it. Oh, well, would you look at that? Over the course of 8 months, it went from not a threat to democracy to a redistricting scheme that was a power grab by the Democrats of Virginia, both by the Democracy Dies at the Washington Post editorial board, both opinion articles, both the same publication, exactly polar opposite results. And the real kicker to that is, ladies and gentlemen, that the Virginia thing never happens if the Texas thing doesn't happen. People were pretty placated with the subtle gerrymandering conversation. I had a joke with a coworker of mine yesterday about this, saying I think there's a lot of people in power that hate that people are doing gerrymandering in such flagrant ways, because it was always happening, and it was happening in an under the radar kind of way that they were able to get away with, so that they didn't have to worry about the masses causing a scene about it. 24-hour news cycles about gerrymandering and how when Democrats do it, it's bad, but when Republicans do it, it's saving democracy, or vice versa. They liked it when we were just all quietly gerrymandered. People only realized that Illinois was gerrymandered to an 11-seat advantage in August of last year because Texas was so flagrant about it. I say this all the time. Democrats and Republicans are both corrupt, but at least the Democrats have the courtesy of being discreet about it. Like Nancy Pelosi will invest in NVIDIA, and over the course of like 2.5 years, as NVIDIA takes over more and more of the AI and semiconductor market, and billions of dollars somewhat fraudulently start exchanging hands in the AI sector, and her portfolio shoots through the roof, it's really difficult to highlight insider trading. And then Donald Trump has basically every single $1,000 move in the Dow, positive or negative, under his name, either during COVID, as a result of tariff announcements, or as a result of war announcements. And we'll have people, mystery people, making the same amount of money that Nancy Pelosi is making, but in like 17 hours. And it's like, okay, well, if Nancy Pelosi ticks you off, you're obviously livid about that. Then you ask MAGA, they're like, no, actually, waka waka MAGA, and then you move on from that, and that's how they feel about it. At least Democrats have the courtesy of being discreet about what's happening, and the Texas thing is just another one of those examples. Now we don't even hide that we hate it. We don't hide that we know it exists. Again, Republicans have the trifecta. Call the liberal bluff. If you think this was a duopoly thing, every single liberal from 2016 to today, multiple times over, has voted to ban partisan gerrymandering. Every single Republican blocks it every time. If you are mad about what Virginia did, call your senator if you're in a Republican area. Tell them to do something about it. Because the liberals try when they have a majority, but thanks to the God bless the filibuster, they need 60 votes in the Senate. So either call your senator and tell them to join Democrats next time, or tell them to put it up to a vote right now. Something tells me you'll get the 8 Democrats necessary in the Senate to push this across the finish line, considering every single one of them voted. Even if some of them flip-flop, we can quietly judge them when they do. You'll get 8 of them. I promise you'll get 8 of them. So go do it. This is going to be a pointless conversation that lingers for a while, and I'm very nervous that the Orange Dad president in the White House is going to use this as an example to release the masked Virgin Army at polling places. And I promise you right now, if you thought this show was becoming unhinged when those virgins were murdering people in the middle of the street, which, by the way, Donald Trump's saving eight AI women in Iran, but also announced that there will be no federal prosecution of the man that shot Renee Good. I got a bridge to sell you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, they're going to use this as an example to do shady stuff, and I'd rather we just eliminate the process in general, because you're seeing Hakeem Jeffries now pounding his chest and pretending, Cory Booker as well, Chuck Schumer, pretending that there is some kind of goodness coming out of this gerrymandering. They're not running on the policies that they're going to do as a result of this gerrymandering. They're just running on defending our democracy from MAGA, and that just ain't going to cut it. That just isn't going to cut it in in 2026 and beyond. You might be able to waltz to a victory at the midterms here again because MAGA is so uniquely bad. But it's not going to carry you for long, and we're going to be back in this circular drain that we call the duopoly very quickly. And with that, I got to squeeze one more break in here before we call it a show. We'll have about 6-ish minutes on the other side of that break to jump into one final segment of the day before we call it. 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. Anybody who wants to text or call in, you can also join us on YouTube, TikTok, or Facebook as well. We stream live every single day there. Consider following along, and we'll be back in just a little bit. You're listening to Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY. All right. 5 minutes before we can call it a Thursday, an NFL draft edition. Thank you to everybody who's made it this far along in the ride with me. Ben is also bringing up the SPLC thing, which we talked about at the top of the hour there. As I mentioned, I'll continue following along with it. I don't trust the sources that are reporting it right now as I continue following along. But Ben messaging me brings up a more important point. He says, does this matter or no? Because the Democrats are so very good, and the only possible reason is that Trump is a bad guy. Ben, there was a time when you understood that Bidenomics wasn't working, and Trumponomics is objectively so much worse. Like, stop getting offended by me highlighting that Trump's failing you in every way. Like, I can't keep going back and forth with you about this. Here's the thing. You know what? This is how we're ending the show. Back in 2024, I remember it very vividly. I was doing a show at EAA. We do our live shows at EAA in July, and at the same time, there was a flood that took place in North Carolina while Joe Biden was still in office. And I remember Ben messaged me through the text line. We have like a remote setup. It's a little more Bush League than what is normally, like a normal setup. The remotes are always hard, but I do my best to still try and get your texts in, but the internet sucks. But he texts me and says, Ben, did you see that there's a person in Joe Biden's FEMA, the disaster relief, that is actively ignoring MAGA requests in North Carolina for assistance? And I was like, I hadn't seen that story. Man, there really are different media circles that I think we need to get to the bottom of here. And I went and did the story, and it turns out that it was some random woman in FEMA who just had an axe to grind with MAGA, just a general bad person who was a diehard lib who wanted to take advantage of the fact that she had the power over some of the money dispersal and chose not to give it to certain people, not collectively. This was not a mandate from Joe Biden on down. This was one person who was a jagoff who was deciding to exploit political differences at a time when a natural disaster had just occurred. You would think we'd be able to be bigger than that. That woman was immediately fired, and FEMA was operating according to plan since then. Since Ronald Reagan, the lowest amount of blue state FEMA requests coming from a Republican president is 67%. 2/3 of the requests for FEMA, that was Reagan in 84, by the way, 2/3 of the requests still went through, but he stopped 1/3 of the requests for federal disaster aid going to blue states, said you guys need to figure it out on your own. That is a record low for presidents since 1980. Or should I say that was a record low for presidents since 1980, because the new record is 20%. Donald Trump has allowed 20% of federal aid requested by states that didn't vote for him to go through. And it doesn't seem like that is resonating as much. This from the top down mandate in FEMA to not allow blue states to get federal funding seems to have not percolated through the megasphere the way that one random woman in FEMA who immediately got fired became a week and a half long scandal. You want to know why I don't take SPLC seriously, Ben? Because Kash Patel is a joke. Because Elon Musk is a liar, and I do not trust the sources. When it is confirmed what they are talking about, it will make its way on this show. Until then, I am deeming it a distraction from the Epstein files and this trash-ass administration. Waka waka, MAGA. And that does it for our Thursday show. If you haven't already, download the WHBY app. All you have to do is search WHBY in Google Play or in the App Store. It is free and easy to use and keeps you up to date on any shows you may have missed. Take me in the car with you like Larry's doing right now. You can also watch the show on TikTok Live, YouTube Live, and Facebook Live, as well as catch older episodes on my own personal YouTube page as well. Help a brother out and subscribe to that page. Just type my name into your search bar. It'll be the first channel that pops up. Haley's up next. Short show with the Brewers game coming up as well. And we will be back for one final show on Friday. Talk to you then. Outside the Box.